In this video, I'm going to show you how you can fully automate your Instagram carousel posts. I will show you all the tools that I use to build this, and then I will build it here on screen so you can just follow along and build it yourself. If this sounds all too much for you and you just want to skip ahead and copy and paste this automation, follow the link in the description and you get access to the whole thing, and you can just implement it and start straight away to create posts, carousel posts for Instagram. Let's look at what I mean with carousel posts. So carousel posts would basically be a collection of a few images that make up together one post and are creating a story. So in this case, for example, you have a cover image that tells the viewer something about, hey, there are 3 ways to automate high quality faceless videos, and then the 3 ways are coming, right? Number 1, number 2, number 3, and then some end slide, maybe with some advertisement or whatever you want to put there, right? So this would be a carousel post, and I will show you now how this automation works, and then we will build it together. Okay, so let's look at how this automation works. First, we create the content for the carousel post. So we're using OpenAI here, and what this module essentially does is it creates the main topic of the post as well as then the content for the different slides. Okay, we then collect the result here, and then we use a tool called Placid. I will show you this in a second, how this looks like. But imagine Canva just in a way that you can control a lot of the elements in it. And we iterate through this here, where we first create a head slide or a cover slide, then we create the story slides, and then we create the final slide where we want to maybe have a reference to our website or whatever we want to advertise it basically. And then we collect all of this and we create a description and hashtags and what we need for Instagram, and then we upload it to Instagram. That's it, really simple. Notice you have an iterator here because we want to create several slides, right? And then we have different slide types. So we have a different structure maybe for the cover slide than for the story slides and for the final slide. And we create templates in Placid, and therefore we iterate through this and we filter which path this should go through. And then, as I said later, we basically aggregate those slides and we post them to Instagram. And you will see how this all works in more detail once we build it. Let's first now look at Placid and how Placid really looks like and works, because it's a really cool tool that you can use for a lot of other automations as well, and I hope you really like it. So this is how Placid looks like. It's essentially a template builder for images or for slides, and it functions in a lot of ways very similar to Canva, with the added functionality that you can change images and tags and elements in general with the API. And in that sense, it works very similar to Creatormate. If you don't know what Creatormate is, it's a super powerful tool that you can use to automatically create videos. Check out the video on that in my channel as well. There's a full-on tutorial how you can fully automatically create videos, video shorts, for example, for YouTube, completely automatically with Creatormate. And if you have seen this, you will notice that there are some similarities, and I will get back to this. So when you build a template here, you can add text, you can add shapes, images, browser frames, barcodes, ratings, subtitle layers, so different kind of elements. And in this template builder, you control where are they located and how should they look like. So for example, with text, you can define where it's located, what color it has, what font, what the default text should be, all of the things that you would want to control when it comes to text. And similarly with an image, you can control as well the size, the position, whether it should have any rotation. And whether it should have any border radius, and in general you can of course control on what layer they should be, yeah? So whether one element should be above another or not. And this is all very similar to Canva. However, this tool allows us as well to change content via the API. And the way that you can do it is by just making it dynamic. So if I click here, this would be, for example, this text field here that I called number. Now I can't change it via the API, but when I click here, I can now switch it to element is dynamic, and this allows me to control the content of this element via the API. So basically the text here. And for images, literally the image. And in that sense, as I said, it's very similar to Creator-Mate, because in Creator-Mate you basically have a video template where you control how elements move and whether they fade in, fade out, where they are positioned and all of this. But you can then later change the content via the API. Yeah, very similar to this. So this is how Placid looks like. It's super cool, check it out. There's a link in the description of this video as well. And let's now go back to the automation and basically build it together. So we start with a completely empty automation here. And what you see, by the way, here is called Make. This is the tool that I use to build this whole automation. If you're not familiar with Make, check out the link to my community in the description. There's a full-on course how to automate anything with Make. And on top of that, you will find in the community as well live calls where we build automations together. If you have an idea for an automation or you're struggling building one, then you can post it in the community and we will build it together in those live calls. And you will find also all the automations that the community or I build, and you can just download it, copy and paste it and get started. So check out the link in the description and I would really love to see you there. Anyways, let's build this. We start with an OpenAI module where we create the topic for the carousel post as well as the content of the different slides. So to get started, let's click here and select OpenAI. If you can't find it here, you can just search for it as well. And then in this case, we use a completion. You can as well replace this with message as an assistant module. What this basically does is it uses the API to communicate with your OpenAI account and an assistant that you set up there. Again, there's also videos in my community on how to set up an OpenAI assistant, and OpenAI assistants are basically your own ChatGPT that you can control, and you can put knowledge in there that it should drag its information from. So it's a really powerful tool. In this case, we just do it with a chat completion, which is more or less the same thing as if you talk to ChatGPT on the ChatGPT platform. And as model, we can use here, we have a wide selection. Let's just use for mini for now. And then I have we put max tokens here to 0, which means it's unlimited essentially, or it uses as many tokens as it needs. And then I have a prompt created here. So we use a system prompt first to basically instruct the AI what it should do. I will just copy and paste it here. If you download this automation, you will have the full prompt in it. Yeah, you don't need to worry about it. But essentially, what this prompt here does is it basically provides the structure for the Instagram post or for the carousel post. It instructs it how many slides it should create, and then at the end as well, and this is kind of important, it tells it to put out the result as a JSON. And we will also say here, I want response format JSON. And usually you will not see this option, as you can see here. Yeah, you just have the prompts, but we will, if you click here on show advanced settings, you can select it here, and we will select JSON object. And I will come back to this later why this is important. On top of it, you can also change here a lot of other settings, maybe play around with it. For me, the standard settings are fine. And then the next thing is we need to send a message to OpenAI as a user. So this is basically, if you think about ChatGPT, you give some context. In a good prompt, you give some context of what you expect from the AI to do, and then you give the main idea and topic what this should be based on. So in this case, I will just copy and paste this as well. So the idea here would be to create a post about the benefits of using social media for lead generation. Okay, and it should create content based on this. Now let's run this once. This is good practice when you build automations, to regularly run what you already have in order to test whether it really works and what the result actually is. And as you can see here, we get a JSON, which is good, and it gives us a few information. So it gives us a headline, so this would be the headline for the first slide, and then it gives us, there's no other content in this case for the first slide, and then it gives us the headline for slide 1, 2, or story slide 1. This is actually slide 2, yeah, but story slide 1, story slide 2, story slide 3, as well as the content for each of those slides, and then a final slide where we can put, for example, a link or some reference to where we want people to check out more of what we're doing. Right, so this is cool. The thing now is to work with this. As you can see, the result here is just text essentially. It's a JSON, but it's text, and to work with this is a bit tedious. So what we do is we add here, and by the way, what I just did here is I clicked here on favorites, and then we select JSON. We just put in JSON, and we want to pass this JSON that we receive here. And the cool thing now is, I will show you this in a second, the cool thing now is you get here variables that you can select and map later. Okay, so far so good. What we do now is we want to create those different slides with Placid. So Placid has a native connection here already to make, which makes it super easy to use. And we select create image, and we want to create an image with this template that we created in Placid and the content from what ChatGPT provided us, or OpenAI provided us. So let's click here and select the template. The template was, so first the carousel title slide, and then a menu shows up where we can put in the different contents that we created in the template. So let's take, for example, here the number. This is a text field called number, and we can change the content of this. In the template that I created, I could have just not make this dynamic and just set this text as the default text. I can leave this blank as well, and it will just take the default text of this template as well. Now, what we want to do here, we want to create the headline, and the headline, the name that I gave it in the template was just new text layer. Better way to do it would be to call it headline. But anyways, this is where we want to put the headline. Now, as you can see at the moment, we can't select here a headline or anything. We could just select here from the OpenAI module the result. We don't want this. So for Make to know what kind of variables we have available here, let's run this once and let's see what the JSON module actually provides us as an outcome. Let's connect this back up, and now when I click here, as you can see, it's not only showing the result of this OpenAI module, but also of this carousel. Now, what you can see here is it gives us here, so those two brackets here mean that it gives us an array, and an array with 3 variables, the name, the headline, and the content. And this is exactly what we see here. Name, headline, name, headline, and content, right? The issue though is it creates 5 different collections which each a name, a headline, and a content, and for the first slide it doesn't give us a content because we don't need content essentially. However, when I want to select it here, I can just say, okay, I want the name, or I want the headline, or I want the content, which is a bit of an issue because we want here the specific text for, or the specific headline from the carousel, sorry, for the first slide. Now there are different ways of doing it. One way you can find in the video on my channel where it is about creating videos with Creatomate. This is how you can work with arrays. The other option would be check out again the link to my community. There's a full-on video on how to work with arrays in Make. In this video I will show you a different option of what you can do. So this here is an array and it has different elements and we can iterate through those different elements. So what I will do is I will select this iterator module and I select here the array that I want to iterate through. And then I go back to this module and I say, okay, here I want the headline, but I only want here the headline if, so we can put here a condition that filters it, right? It only continues to this module if the name is cover. And this is how I instructed here OpenAI or ChatGPT to put it out. And if you look here at the array that it creates, here of the first slide the name is cover. And here the name is 1, 2, 3, and here end. And this is how I can control that if we want to create here the title slide, it only continues here if the name is cover, right? In the other cases it won't go to this slide and it will not create any image. Alright, cool. So then we put in here the headline, and on the title slide we don't have any content, so we only put in the headline. And then the next module here we put in is we need the link of this image. So basically what Placid will put out is the image URL, and we later needed to upload it to Instagram, and I will show you how. But first let's store this. And the way that we store it is we just select here a variable. And by the way, there's a module as well called set variable, singular. I recommend you strongly to always use multiple variables, even if you think you only need one, because it takes the same amount of operations. However, if you later figure out, hey, I need to actually store several variables, then you would need to select several set variables in a row, which takes more operations and takes a little bit longer as well. Whereas if you have this, it's faster and it takes less operations, and you can just put in one variable if you want. Anyhow, we want to store here the URL for this first image that we created with Placid. And the name that we give it is just image, but then let's think again. We want to create several images. If we all call them image, Make would just overwrite them and you would just pull the last image that you created. What we instead need to do, we need to make this unique. And the way that we can do it is I put space here and then just bundle order position. Now, bundle order position basically means this iterator iterates through the array, and it is set up to have 5 different items in it. So this iterator would run here 5 times, so it would put out the first collection or the first collection. Those here are collections. Name, headline, content is one collection altogether. So it would put out the first collection, second, and so on. And only if the variable name has cover, it would continue to this. But it has a built-in counter. So the first time it runs, it says 1, then 2, then 3, 4, and so on. So this bundle order position is that counter, right? So the first time it runs, it would create a variable here, image 1. The second time, image 2, and so on. Hope that this makes sense. But this way we can control that we have here individual variables that all have different names. Right. So we save this, or we save this variable. And then we repeat the same thing for our story images. However, the filter here is a little bit different. So the filter would be, we don't want to continue here if it is equal to cover, and we also don't want to continue if this name is equal to end, right? Because again here, the name of the first one is cover, the last one is end, and then in the middle the story slides are 1, 2, 3. So now with this filter we ensure that this continues to run only if it has a number 1, 2, 3 and not when it's cover or end. Alright, cool. And then we change this here because I have a different template for the carousel title than for the carousel main slides. And here we need to plug in again the headline. Here I named it correctly. So we want the headline. And we want the text, so the content. And we also want the number, which is, again, the order position. Right, so 1, 2, 3, 4. But because the first story slide is actually when this ran the second time and not when it ran the first time, we need to subtract here 1. If I put it like this in, it doesn't work. It creates an error, or it creates a false outcome rather. What we need to do is then we need to use this minus here. Alright, cool. So this should give us a slide where we fill it with the headline, the content, and the number 1 for the first slide, 2 for the second slide, and 3 for the third slide. Cool. And then we store this variable again, or this image URL again. And now under the image 2, 3, and 4. And at this point again, let's run it once as a test, so to see what it actually, sorry, I just want to limit it here. Because I don't want to run it all 5 times. I just want to run it once for the cover slide and once for one of the first story slide. So let's run it now. Again, it creates the content, creates the JSON out of it, then runs it the first time here to place it, and see, here it passed this filter, and passed this filter, and the second time it ran, it didn't pass this filter, and it didn't pass this filter either. This here needs to be not equal. Let's do it again. This happens, but this is exactly why you test, to see whether everything is set up the correct way. In this case I made a mistake, happens, but now we know and we run it now again. And as you can see, it does exactly what it should. So it creates the content, creates the JSON, then it iterates through this array, and it passes this filter here obviously, because we have here bundle order position 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But we only want to pass the first 2, so those are cancelled out. And then the first time it runs here because the name was cover. This is exactly what we wanted. It fills the slide. And then the second time it gets blocked here because the name is not cover. In fact, the name is 1. And it runs here because we have the name is 1, so it's not equal to cover and it's not equal to end. And it creates the first slide here. And then it stores the URLs here in a variable called image1 and here in a variable called image2. Right? And this we can download then later and upload it to Instagram. Now, if we ran this 5 times, it would create the cover slide and the 3 story slides. Now we need the final slide. Let's add this as well. And here the filter is very simple. It's called, we want the name end. We can take this here out. And we create the end slide. So let's replace here the template from Placid with carousel finish. And then again fill in here those variables. So we have the image, the CTA, the website. Now I remember, so in this case I decided for the template to actually have it static. What I mean is I always want to have the same CTA and always the same text and images, so I don't replace anything here. We could if we wanted, but I leave it as default. And again, we save the image, and that's about it. Alright, cool. So now we create the cover, the 3 story slides, and then the finish slide. Now let's connect this all and get it up to Instagram. So the way we can do it is we use another router module, and one quick excursus here to the router. So the router runs those paths, and usually it runs them in order. So it would first run this whole path, and once this is come to an end, then the second, and then the third. In this case we have filters, right? So it only runs this once there's a certain condition met. But in general, those filters as well, they are checked in the order they are displayed here. And you can see there is like a numeration here, first, second, third. You can change this by either right-clicking here and saying, hey, order those modules or those paths. Or what you can do as well is so it's always in the order that you connected them. So if I disconnected this and reconnected it, and then click on auto line, you see it changes position. We don't want this, we want this always as the last, so let's switch it back. Now, once this is all run, once all the images are created, let's now upload them to Instagram. And first we get those image URLs again. So we create a get multiple variables, but we don't want it after this iterator, because if I put it just here, it wouldn't run now 5 times for every bundle this creates here. I could filter here and say, hey, total number of bundles is equal to bundle order position. Make sure it's numeric operator. So what it means is this here pushes out the bundle order position. It's 1, 2, 3, so for every iteration. And then also how many bundles it's putting out in total. So this allows us to say, okay, if I have a filter here, this needs to be equal to this, and this only runs once all of those bundles are there, right? It only runs for the last bundle essentially. And again, because of order here, it runs first up here, and then once it runs all here and checks all those filters, it then goes down here and checks this filter, and in fact then it would only do it it would only progress for the last one. Another way of doing it would be just to put it here, because again then this whole thing here would first run, including this iterator, and then only at the end this. Same result, because I already put in the filter here. Let's just do it like this. Delete this, we can delete this, connect this back and connect this back. Alright, cool. Let's save this and then continue. Okay, so let's pull the images, and we just gave them the name image1, right? So here image1, and then here image2, 3, 4, and here image5. So let's pull those variables like this. And 5. Alright, cool. And then we upload them to Instagram. For Instagram, we need to have an Instagram business account. And there's a module here called Instagram for Business. You can pull this and then select create carousel post. And here we just upload or put in the images. So image number 1, and we put here image 1. We don't need tags. Then again image 2, put in image 2, and image 3, image 3, and continue so on. Let me do this quickly, and then we will come to the caption. So basically the description of the post itself on Instagram. Let me save this just quickly. So what we can do here, of course we can just come up with a number of hashtags and put them in here, and also a generic description. But a nicer way of doing it is having the description, of course, related to the actual post. So how do we do this? Again, we use OpenAI, do a completion, so basically talk to ChatGPT, put in here 0 tokens, so use all the tokens. This means use all the tokens you need. And then let's use this model, and then we need to message it again. So first we have the system prompt, and I will just copy and paste it. And again, if you just download this automation, you have the prompt here in already, so you don't need to do anything. And then for user, we have also a prompt. So let me just quickly explain how this works, and we need to replace this here in a second. But how this works essentially is that we tell ChatGPT to create hashtags as well as a caption based on the content of the post. Okay? And then we later put it into our caption here in Instagram. And again, as you can see at the bottom, we want it as a JSON. And here we say, therefore, JSON object, and then we say pass JSON object. So basically the same thing that we did here with passing this JSON, we do here just in the OpenAI module. The reason I did not do it here is because, number one, for purposes of demonstrating it here, but also because it's a bit easier to use it then for the iterator and so on. But here we don't really need to iterate it. We just get now, once we run this, let's run this once, even if it's not giving us here good inputs. I will replace this later and I will explain to you what I'm doing here. But let's run this once just to see what is the outcome and what's the structure of the outcome that OpenAI would provide us here. Actually, let's take the content that we have here. Right, so we use this, and based on this, it's now creating us an output, and the output is already in those variables, so we can use them here now. Can say, okay, give me the caption, and then put the hashtags on that. Right? Cool. So again, this is the system prompt that we say, okay, I want captions and I want hashtags, please create it based on those carousel slides. And then we provide here the carousel slides itself. However, it will most likely not be able to read it like this. So what we do instead is we create, or we provided exactly the text here that we created in this JSON. And the way that you can do it is you can work with arrays, and there's a function. And again, if you check out the video on my channel that's around creating videos with Creatomate, I'm going a bit more into that, how this formula works. For this purpose, you can just copy and paste it. Okay, let's get and then map, and we want this array here. From here, so we want this array here, and we want the headline, and we want number 1. And then we also want, this is it for slide number 1, and for slide number 2 we want the headline, and we want as well the content, and then we repeat this for the other slides. And I will quickly summarize again what exactly we are doing here. Let me just finish this. This is 3, 4, 5, and then this is 3, 3, this is 4, 4, and this is 5 and 5. So without understanding this formula here in detail, again, more detailed explanation is in the video regarding how to create videos with Creatomate automatically, or as well in the community how to work with arrays. However, we essentially tell OpenAI here, hey, please create a caption and hashtags based on the content of the slides. And by the way, here's the content of the slides. Okay, that's about it. And again, we then put here the caption and the hashtags. Now, let's run this once and see what the actual outcome is. And while this is running, oh, I'm sorry, I need to stop this. We want to remove this filter so we are actually creating all the slides. Let me save this. And while this is running, maybe just a few words of what you can do to further improve this automation. So the first thing to notice here is, here at the beginning, we defined the topic that this carousel post should be about. Now, this works generally and it creates content. However, there are 2 issues with this. Number 1, it's static, so it will always create content around the exact same topic. You might or might not want this. If you want to make this more dynamic, you can have another module here, or you do it in the same OpenAI module, but I would probably do it with a second OpenAI module or any other AI, where you give some instructions on how to pick a specific topic to write about, to make it a little bit more broader and a bit more variation. The second issue with doing it like this is, if you run this automation regularly or more than once, you might come up with very similar posts. Not only because it is around the same topic, but it will actually create very similar headlines on very similar content. You're risking this anyways, even after just 2 or 3 posts. So again, in order to avoid this, what you can do here, this is now a simple chat completion module. But if you build your own assistant that does the same thing essentially, but the big difference is with an assistant, you can continue a conversation that you already had. So you have here an input field that's called thread ID. And thread ID is basically the conversation ID. So if you have a fixed thread ID that you provide here every time it runs, and you also instruct the assistant to not create the same content twice, then you will just avoid the issue that I just stated, right? So this is one way around it. The other thing is as well, at the moment, this here is set up to run at regular intervals. So for example, 15 minutes, but you can put it as well to, hey, I want this to run every day at 8 o'clock, for example. Yeah, to say, hey, every day 8 o'clock in the morning. However, you might not want this to run automatically at all. Instead, you might want to trigger this out of a content management system, and you can build a content management system. So basically an overview of all the content that you have and that you post, on which platform and so on. You can build this out in Monday, you can build this out in Airtable, and there will be a few more videos from me on how to do this exactly. And there's already some content, and there will be more content in the community. But the main point here is you might not want to have this autonomously running, but instead have control over it by providing, for example, the topic that you want this post to be about tomorrow or the day after or whatever. And the same thing here at the end. We are now posting it straight away to Instagram. We might not want this. Maybe instead we want to first post it to our content management system so that someone can look over it and say, hey, I want it like this is approved, or this is not approved and I want to change it, right? So that you have a bit more control over it. I'm not saying it's better to do it, but it might be in some cases if you want to have more control. Sometimes more control might not be good. Maybe you just want to run it and see, okay, what is the result, and then tweak it. But those are some of the things that you could improve here. Of course, then you can change here the number of slides. We have here now one title slide, 3 story slides, and 1 end slide. You can change it to 5 story slides, for example, right? Or you skip the end slide. So you can do this by changing here the prompt, and then of course changing here the number of slides that you provide and build here, right? Anyways, let's look at the actual post, and let's see what we got out here. Okay, so here's the final outcome. And the first thing that I notice is here it says 5, here it says 3. And I will show you how to fix this, but let's look at the rest of the content. So we have 3 benefits of using social media for lead generation. Okay, great. And then we have the 3 slides. Reach a wider audience. So you have some text here then engage with prospects directly. You can have real-time interactions with potential leads, but really cool, actually makes sense. And then cost-effective marketing also makes sense, obviously. And then you have the final slide, which is anyways given. We didn't change anything. Okay, cool. And you have also some caption here. Unlock lead generation success. Discover how social media can widen your reach. Engage prospects and save you money. Awesome. With relevant hashtags. Okay, that's really cool. Let's just go back to the automation and fix this issue here. We don't want, number one, we don't want the number here to show up in this title, because even if we change it here correctly, like this here should display 3, the idea is to have 3 benefits of using social media and not three benefits, right? So let's take care of this. Okay, so the way that we can take care of this is we need to replace some things here. So first of all, we actually need to change here the number. The number that we want is the total number of bundles, right? So we are creating here 5 images. So the total number of bundles, and then we subtract 2, 1 for the cover and 1 for the end. So again, -2. Now I'm making this dynamic because, I mean, you could also just, instead of putting this, you could just say, okay, give me 3. Put always 3 here. But the reason I'm doing this like this is I want to make sure that I can just change here the number of slides that it creates, right? I'm basically prepping already to make this automation better. Instead of always having story posts or carousel posts with 3 story slides, maybe I want to provide this here dynamically, and I could then change here the prompt and say, hey, I want a total of, for example, 7 slides, right? And I make this here dynamic and pull this variable from somewhere, right? So this is the reason that I'm doing it like this, but for the simplest version, if you're building it as well, you can just put here 3 instead of this formula. It works as well. So this is one thing. The other thing is, in the headline, we don't want this number to appear. So this is actually an issue here with the prompt. So I will tweak this a bit for the version that you can download later, so that it really doesn't include this number. I already instructed OpenAI here to do it, but I need to make this even stricter. So in the version that I make available for download with from the description, I will update this. Yeah, and you can, if you copy and paste it, you have it. If not, if you just want to build it yourself and you build it along here on this video, play around with this prompt. I'm sure you can figure it out. Alright, cool. That's it. This is how you can fully automate your carousel posts and post them to Instagram. I also went through what you can do in order to improve it even further. So I hope this really provided you a lot of value. If it did, click like. If it didn't, click subscribe. Ideally, just do both. And check out the community. There's a link in the description. I would really love to see you there. And there's a special link as well where you can get 2 weeks completely free, so you can check it out as well. So hope to see you there, and have a great day and have fun automating.